Okay, so starting with your introduction paragraph. It says to start with the hook, but to skip this part until I teach it, so we're going to skip this part. Okay, the next thing it says in a sensible order, include the following. What that means is that you don't necessarily need to go in order the way this is listed over here. You can choose an order that makes sense to you. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. But what we need in this large box is some sort of introduction to the problem or the issue in like a couple sentences. Then we're going to need to copy and paste the information from our history and background note cards, our goals and mission and purpose note cards. This is continued on to the next page, but let's just talk about this for now. The first thing I'm going to do is actually introduce my problem in a few sentences. My charity is called Possibilities. It's the Humane Society of Summit County. So I might say something like this. And you don't need to use this phrase in the world today if you don't want to. Okay, so here is what I have. And I might decide to change it later. That's okay. In the world today, we are faced with an ever-growing issue of suffering that seems to impact all walks of life, not the least of which are the defenseless animals around us who, without our help, will continue to be in dire need. So there's me introducing the problem. Your problem might be more like in the world today, cancer impacts someone, everyone knows someone with cancer. It could be something like that. Now I need to start inserting some of my research, whether I want to introduce my charity with its background and history, or whether I want to introduce my charity with its purpose, goals, and mission, or flip-flop that. So I'm going over to my note cards at NoodleTools. And I have a couple note cards in this pile. I almost feel like I'm going to start with this one. So I'm double clicking it to open it. Now here's what I don't want. I don't want any of the stuff from the left-hand side. Remember, that was what we copied and pasted from the website. You were supposed to take notes on the right-hand side. So this is in your words. It's paraphrased, or maybe you have a couple direct quotes. Maybe yours is in bullet points like mine is. But either way, I'm going to copy and paste it. And I'm just going to go ahead and cancel this. Do I want to save changes? Well, I didn't make changes. Okay. So I'm going to paste it over here. And it's going to look weird. It's not the right font. Things might be spelled wrong. It's in bullet points, which is not what I want. But that's okay. I'm just going to get it over here. Okay? So this is my next job. I need to somehow... I don't want to just start talking about my charity out of the clear blue sky when I haven't even talked about it yet. So I need to somehow introduce my charity. And then I need to make all of these go from being in bullet points to being in sentences. And so let's see here. In the world today, we are faced with an ever-growing issue of suffering. Animals without our help will continue to be in dire need. Fortunately, one such charity seeks to combat this issue. Humane Society of Greater Akron. Possibilities Humane Society of Greater Akron. And now I'm trying to take stuff here. Here we go. I'm going to copy this. Is the sole legal organization in all of Summit County that protects and rescues abused or neglected animals. I'm going to get rid of that word. They have been around since 1968. So as I'm using this, I'm deleting it. This whole 2014 thing I want to use, but not yet. It just doesn't seem like it fits there. How about I get some of the goals, mission, and purpose? So I'm going to come over here, and I've got 2 of those note cards. I'm going to open up the first one. Oh, this tells what their mission is and their vision. So again, I'm going to copy and paste all of this and come back over here. Yes, I don't like the way it's Formatted, that's all stuff we'll fix later. They've been around since 1968. Oh, the way I wrote this, I could probably just leave. Possibilities is centered on the care of abused, neglected, and abandoned animals of Summit County according to the mission statement on their website. If you don't have that right there, if you aren't giving credit throughout all of your research, this is the time where you want to start doing that. You're going to want to start weaving in things like according to their website or as they state online, that kind of stuff. The other thing you're going to notice is that I follow up almost all of my direct quotes and almost all of my paraphrasing with something like, in other words, they seek to help suffer. I explain what I just wrote in plain English. Because this said, and I took it from their website, that it's abused, neglected, abandoned animals. And now I want to put it in my own words. They're basically trying to help the suffering animals. So for this kind of stuff, which I have bullet pointed, you cannot leave it as bullet points over here. You've got to figure out how to creatively weave it into prose, which means paragraph and sentence writing. So, in other words, they seek to help suffering animals. This charity's vision centers on community. What do I mean by that? Ooh, how about I say this? Is community centered and focused on the humane treatment of animals. I don't need that to be a capital H. On the humane treatment of animals. See how you take what you have and you make it into prose. Okay, so I have finally finished weaving all of that together. I still have a couple bullet points left down here that you might remember I said I was going to wait. I had this on one of my history and background cards, and now I'm like, I don't think I want to use this one. It's just too specific, and I think if I want it back, I can go back and get it later, but I'm going to delete it. 2014 was a record-breaking year. Maybe I'll say, okay, they've been around since what, 1968? So maybe I'll say in the almost 50 years that this charity has existed, 2014 was a record-breaking year for the organization. It doesn't make sense to put it right here. I feel like it needs to, I'm going to get rid of it there and put it up here. Okay, and if this is bugging you that now there's like 2 or 3 different types of fonts and all that, just go ahead, highlight it all, and you can clear the formatting, which will take it back to like Arial size 11, or you can just do that manually. Okay. All right. I just need to make sure this all flows. In the world today, we are faced with an ever-growing issue of suffering that seems to impact all walks of life, not the least of which are the defenseless animals around us who, without our help, will continue to be in dire need. Fortunately, one such charity seeks to combat this issue. Possibilities Humane Society of Greater Akron is the sole legal organization in all of Summit County that protects and rescues abused or neglected animals. They have been around since 1968. In the almost 50 years that this charity has existed, 2014 was a record-breaking year for the organization. Possibilities is centered on the care of the abused, neglected, and abandoned animals of Summit County, according to the mission statement on their website. In other words, they seek to help suffering animals. This charity's vision, do you guys notice how I don't just keep calling it Possibilities? Possibilities. You don't have to use the charity's name over and over. Sometimes I refer to it as this charity. Sometimes I refer to it as the organization. There's other words too. This charity's vision is community-centered and focused on the humane treatment of animals. Their core values include the idea of compassion, that all animals deserve kindness and respect as they heal and rehabilitate. The idea, you know what, I'm going to put this word in italics, compassion, because they have 3 core values. Influence, that they wish to influence the community as the voice of animals in order to raise awareness of animal suffering. And finally, the idea of engagement, that all of this is achieved through working with others and through collaborating with community partners in order to accomplish their mission. Possibilities does many things. One big aspect of this foundation is that they try to get animals into new homes through their adoption program. As you can tell, maybe you can't tell, this was all copied from the purpose, goals, and mission note card, because now I'm explaining what the charity does. On top of that, they investigate animal cruelty cases in order to rescue animal victims. They even have several community education programs that are created for teaching others about how to properly care for and treat pets. Their goal for this is to encourage respect and compassion for animals. All right, all of this gigantic thing doesn't even count my hook and doesn't even count my thesis statement. This is a really big first paragraph. Later on, when we make our rough draft, I might decide to break this up into separate paragraphs. Okay, so my introduction might just be a couple paragraphs long. Don't worry about that right now. The one thing that I did throughout all of this is I copied and pasted my note cards, but then I strung them together. I used transition phrases. I made sure that when I was using quotes, a lot of the time, almost all of the time, I was giving credit back to the website. I didn't just keep saying the charity's name over and over. I gave the charity other names like this organization, this charity, this foundation. I made sure that it was all strung together. That is the number one most important part of this chunk.